Hello and welcome to CRE Talks, a video series created by ICBR in CRE, Indiana, where we talk with industry experts and innovators in commercial real estate. Today, we're taking a closer look at the office and industrial space in District 8 of ICBR, or in the Evansville area. Ken Newcomb Jr. is the president of FC Tucker, and he's the past president of ICBR. He's here today to share what he's seeing in the market of industrial real estate. Our second guest is Jared Lugigs. He's a senior advisor at SVN Martin Group and a partner at Lugigs Kiefer Group. He's focused his career in office space. Welcome, Ken and Jared. We appreciate you being here today. And we'll start today's conversation off by you sharing a little bit about how you got into the industry and why you've stayed in the industry.
Well, quite some time ago, my father was in the real estate business, and he was kind of what we call today a residential guy. And I started off for about 6 months trying to sell houses, and that wasn't for me. There's too much emotion involved in it, and people were not wondering about what color carpets were. And I figured out that a commercial buyer will only give you one of three answers. It doesn't work, it will work, or it'll cost me this much to make it work. And there's not a whole lot of emotion involved in commercial and industrial decisions. So I liked working with commercial buyers a lot better than I did residential. So after my 6 month stint doing both, I stuck with commercial for the rest of my career.
Well, great. We know you've really made a name for yourself down in the Evansville area, and I'm glad you stuck with it. Can you talk a little bit about the trends that you're seeing in the industrial space, maybe since the pandemic started, and if anything has changed?
The industrial market trend is in an upward manner. I mean, I think industrial brokers across the United States are all busy, especially here in Indiana and in Southern Indiana. I know things in Indianapolis, the industrial market is booming. In Southern Indiana, the industrial market is booming. So I think that's the biggest change in the trend, is the slowdown a little bit of the retail and office and the boom in the industrial business.
Are the clients' wants and needs different from earlier in this year before the pandemic?
I don't think the needs are any different. I think the needs may be a little bit greater. When people are ordering online, as opposed to going to the retail stores, we've seen that happen in, pretty much across the board. And so this product has to come from somewhere. Amazon is expanding. They opened up a new center here in Evansville, distribution center. We're seeing that across the country, where they're not just going to the larger cities, but going to the smaller towns, and still putting distribution centers to where they can get that product out immediately. So that's a trend that we're seeing that's a little bit different than before the pandemic.
And so what would you say the future of the industrial market is, say maybe in a year, maybe 3 years?
Well, I think right today, the future is something that you if anybody could have predicted what was going to happen a year ago, I mean, they would have been just a genius. Looking at it now from a year ago and saying, well, where are we right now? Well, I've got new hardware that we've used at the office here that allows me to predict trends and allows me to predict what's going to happen in the market, doing different aspects of the whole internet and the knowledge that's available out there. And I'd like to show it to you. It's something we call our crystal ball. So I use this for clients when they say, what's going to happen in the next 6 months? I said, well, let's pull out the crystal ball and just show you what's going to happen. And I say that jokingly, but that's really the truth. I mean, nobody can predict when this pandemic is going to be over, what the trends are going to be in the office market. Is it going to stay like it was before? Is it ever going to come back to the new normal? I don't think so. And I don't think anybody really knows. This is kind of like the Old West. It's changing so fast. We really don't know which direction it's going to go. But I think if we just stay on top of it, stay course, we'll all be fine.
I agree. We don't know where things are going, and we can be optimistic, and it's important to be realistic as well. And
Yes.
I know that you have weathered a recession before, and can you talk to us a little bit about any best practices that you're taking from what you've learned in past recessions into the current one?
Yeah. This is a very strange time in that market. I remember one of the recessions when I was first in the business that interest rates were 18%. Um, Actually, we did a lot of business at that time because nobody went to the banks. They were just selling everything on contract. So compared to today when we can get 3% commercial mortgage money, that's like the late 50s or early 60s. So, the trends are different, the rates are different. The market is strong, I think, other than the pandemic. Um, this also an election year that kind of throws a new mix into it. So I see the economy coming back strong as the pandemic. I can't say that it's going to go away, but as we get a handle and get some kind of virus protection vaccines. I'm not sure how it's going to go away, but I think it will at some point. I don't know how long it's going to be this bad. And that's going to be the key factor in our economy.
So how are you keeping your pipeline full with deals? And do you have any advice on how to continue to do that?
Yeah, I kind of use the same old plan that I've used throughout my career, and try to stay on tap with 10 clients a day. Touch base, pick up the phone. Don't just use your email. A lot of people like to talk to somebody. A lot of them are too busy to talk and they like email. So use both. But that personal touch is always better. I think for new business, it's very important important in this point in time that we do our work with the nonprofits. All of the nonprofits can't get out and do their fundraisers right now. I think it's important that we help them, and you do your pro bono work. Um, help these nonprofits that help our community, and those referrals come back to you tenfold. So do your part in the community that supports you, and help the nonprofits while they're really struggling right now.
I would agree. That's what makes a great community a community. So looking out for each other is important. In closing out our conversation here, what is one self-care tip that you wish you could have given your 2020 self back in February?
Save my money. that's a key factor. I mean, in this market when it is so volatile, do your planning, do your financial planning. That's a big thing.
Great. I think that's a wrap.
Thank you, Lisa. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Jared, again, thank you for joining us today, and want to start off by just hearing a little bit about your story. How did you get into commercial real estate, and what has kept you in the industry?
Okay, so the reason, I guess, what brought me into the industry is in college I purchased just a 3-unit residential triplex, and kind of living in one and renting out the other, and end up taking some CCIM classes shortly thereafter, and kind of realized that I was making a pretty good return there, around 30%, and it kind of hit me that, obviously if someone can make, returns near that, then obviously they're going to be able to make a pretty good living. So I just continued to, take some classes and end up meeting with Steve Martin, with the Evansville SVN office, of course, and seemed like it was a great fit, both with him and the culture of the office. And so obviously just continued into brokerage from there.
Good. Well, we're glad that you're in the Evansville area, and want to talk a little bit about the clients' needs and wants, and maybe has that changed at all since since we've all been in this pandemic?
Yeah. I would say, I think the best way to answer that is it seems as though the office users that we're seeing come back to work sooner and with greater quantities is obviously those users that have the private offices as well as the ability for them to spread out rather than, of course, some of the ones that maybe sharing smaller offices or have more of the open layout. So, I think we've seen that more. Obviously, things were fairly quiet in the first couple months of COVID. But over the past 45, 60 days, it seems as though we've seen a fair amount of uptick from people who are looking at different spaces. And to echo kind of what I was getting into is that it seems as though the majority of the users that we're talking to are looking at more private offices and just not so much of the shared spaces. So it seems like that, at least for the near term, is going to come back around.
How have you been keeping your pipeline full of deals and any tips that you have in keeping that full?
Yeah, so I think that it's a little bit different conversation than, what we've typically had with, clients and tenants in the past. But I think that it's still that consistent communication with them. Obviously things are slower, but, it's following up with our clients and understanding if there is anything we can be doing or helping them out with as they think through how their business may or may not change. And just letting them know that we are a resource here for them. So I guess just staying in communication during this time.
Yeah, we've weathered recessions before and have probably taken some tips with us on how we'll approach this recession a little bit differently. What would be some of your suggestions for business?
Yeah, obviously this is pretty similar to 2008 in that, there's a lot of wait and see. I was kind of getting in the business during that time period, so unfortunately I remember it all too well. But at the same time, I think that, things will pick up. They're starting to pick up, and I think it's more about being ready whenever they do and preparing yourself for what you need, what you're looking for, for whenever things continue to break open and maybe people are a little bit more comfortable making some decisions.
Yeah, we're hoping that the fourth quarter is a strong one for everyone and that we can make up for maybe the second and the third quarter for sure. What would you give your February 2020 self as a tip for today?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of kind of what maybe I've touched on, that, things are going to obviously, with uncertainty, again, folks aren't going to make decisions or make any moves unless they feel like they need to. So be patient, things will come around.
Thank you, Jared, for sharing your insights today. And I think it'll be helpful to those in our state to learn a little bit more about what's happening in Evansville.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you again, Ken and Jared, for joining us today and providing the Evansville market update. That'll do it today for CRE Talks episode. We will share these on social media as well as our email communications out to members. So until next time, take care.